investigation seminar. The presentation meant to appear off-center. If I reference anything at some point that seems cut, let me know. But yeah, it's not perfectly centered. So this seminar is about investigation. It's about the basis of investigation. I'm gonna go on a technique you can use to investigate. And if you're not exactly sure what you're doing, this will give you a good basis on how to proceed on an investigation and how to try to get the best result you can an investigation. So it's a basic technique. As you can see, this is inspired by a seminar by Pre, and that seminar was given 7 years ago. It just show that first to pay homage to Kevin to make sure that it's credited, and second to say that to show that this technique has been used for a very long time and has been producing results since then. I'm Emilian. I'm a level 3. I also have Grand Prix head judge certification, which means that I've been trained and tested on the highest level of investigation we have. So share the way basically I perform when I have to do an investigation, being at a local event or a Grand Prix. This investigation is centered on a multi-judge tournament. So I'm going to assume that we have at least 2 judges in this tournament. If you have only 1 judge, because you are at a very small event, like a Friday Magic at your local game shop, I have also a seminar on that, and this is actually the Judge Academy investigation module that some of you may already have taken. So here I'm going to assume you have at least 2 judges. If you have only 1, please refer rather to the Judge Academy module. Also, 2 rule in investigation, because even if the head judge will be the one who is gonna pull the trigger on a disqualification or not in an investigation, I would like to stress out that investigations are not a head judge thing. Investigations are done by at least 2 judges at a large event. They're done by the floor judges and they're done by the head judge. And the head judge does not take over. The head judge play a specific role, and the floor judges play a specific role as well. And a successful investigation depends on both of those judges doing their best and succeeding at the investigation. So that's why I'm going to cover both roles, because they are both equally important. Even if the head judge will be the one who has the final say, that does not mean that they do the whole investigation. Quite the opposite. These have a few things to do. We're going to see each of them in detail, one after the other. And the head judge also has a few things to do. So this is a method. This is a very step-by-step process. And by following each step, you will get a result. The first thing that the floor judge do about an investigation is identify the situation, because an investigation is not only when you suspect cheating. An investigation is when you need to understand what is going on. So that's a very common misconception about investigation. You don't investigate when you believe something is fishy. It's because you investigate that at some point you think something is fishy. So you identify, if there is a judge call or there is a visible disagreement between players, and you go to the table and you need to understand what is going on. That could be a simple rules question. In this case, the investigation is very short. What is the question? You answer the question. That should be okay. You may stay around to say what is going on, but a very simple one. There might be a rules broken. In a rule is broken, in this case, the situation will be a bit more complex, because even if most broken are done by players who did not know the rule or are just sloppy, a few of them might be actually malicious. And the way we fix the situation is different based on intent and on knowledge of the situation. So there are a few things we need to know if we want to apply the document. We cannot just apply them blindly. So if a rule is broken, every single time we will need to investigate to know which section of the document we need to apply. Are the player honest? Is there something malicious going on? The conduct, that may be another reason we are called to a table. In this case, same thing, we will need to investigate to understand what is going on, what happened. So those are three typical reasons judges can be called to a table, and we will need to investigate in each of them. The investigation may be longer or quicker. And the situation. Understand the situation means we identified, but we need to have more information about what is going on so we can give the best ruling. We need to understand first if there is an agreement between players or not. And this is something essential, because as soon as we suspect that there is a disagreement between players, at this point, we need to stop the conversation at the table and we need to separate them. I will go on that a bit later, but this is one of the very first things we need to know. So that should be one of your opening questions. Do you both agree on what is going on here? We need to know if the situation is confrontational or not. Again, this is something that is quite important, because if the situation is confrontational, you will also need to de-escalate the situation, and you will need to take that into account. So if the mood at the table is something you need to know as soon as possible. Other fact and statements. Those things are very different. They are totally different kind of information. You have facts. Facts are things that you know for true. They are false or true, and you can check them yourself right now at the table. Statements are things that are subjective or are things that you cannot directly check, and you will need a player's help to actually gather them. So let's see some example of what are facts and statements. Facts are game pieces, so cards in Magic, but could also be token, dices, these kind of things. And they are you can see them. You can see if the card is in the player end or not. You can see if the card is tapped or not. You can see if how many lands are on the battlefield. So these are things you can check right now, and you can see what is going on. Another fact, as Peter mentioned on the chat, life totals game one. So game one, this is not something you can visually see, but this is not really something a player disagree on. They should remember how many games have been played and how many each of them won or lost. This is something you want to know, because that gives you an idea of who has the advantage in the match. Life total, very important. You need to check that every single time you go to a table, because that will give you that, plus the game pieces will tell you a story of who is leading this game. And then you have statements. Statement has everything that happened in the past. So I attack with whose creature last turn. I played a land or not. These things, you cannot check them visually right now. You need to rely on the player's help to know them. So these are statements. Another statement is who has the advantage right now. As a judge, the more you know about the format, the more you know about the matchup, you will get your own idea, but this is something subjective. Again, this is something you want to know, because as I said, when you're going to understand the situation, you will need to know if a player might be malicious, and the advantage will play a lot on that. When you want the player impression, if this is something that you might want, this is something that is a statement, this is not this is a subjective. So do you think your opponent did that on purpose or not, is something that is a statement. And the floor judge, the moment they will arrive to the table and they will do this first round of gathering information, this is when the things are the closest to the truth. Not because I'm afraid that a player are going to change their story, but because I know that players' brains are going to change the story without them even thinking about it. Our brain tend to memories, to twist them, to make to make us very unreliable witnesses. And the more you talk to someone, the more you let time go on, the less their memory will be reliable. And that's why those initial statements of what did happen, what do you think is going on, are very important. And that's something that the head judge will never get. This is something that the floor judge gets. So that's why the floor judge first investigation is very important. And then based on that, the floor judge might want to fetch the head judge. Uh, if if it was a simple situation where the floor judge understands exactly what is going on, don't suspect anything can be fishy, uh, no need to fetch the head judge. You don't fetch the head judge for every single situation. But if you believe that there might be more than what the player just said, but you need to ask extra question, at this point you want to go and fetch the head judge. You don't want to spend too much time on the initial information gathering, because you don't want to delay too much the whole tournament. So as soon as you have this situation, you go and fetch the judge. To do that, if you are the judge who shadow you, or there is a judge nearby, try to leave a judge at the table just to make sure that the game pieces stay the way they are, and to make sure that the players don't talk about the situation, so that they don't contaminate information. If you don't have these resources, obviously do your best. But again, if you have that resource to use, leave a judge at the table. To transmit information to the judge. We want to do that in the most efficient way possible. So just go to the judge and let them know that you have an investigation. And so a judge might have most other things going on that will allow them to prioritize your situation accordingly and make sure that they get to you as quickly as possible. Make sure that you transmit all information away from the table. That will remove a lot of time pressure. You want to make sure that the judge have all information they need to move to the next step, and you don't want to feel pressure to lose some of that information because of time constraint. So there is a question about why to leave a spare judge at the table. As I said, it's just to prevent players to move around game pieces or to contaminate information, to talk with each other. So still about doing away from the table. Another thing that is important, I don't like to get the information as I walk to the table, because first I have no clue how far away is the table, and that means that I don't know how much time I have to ask question, to ask clarification before we arrive at the table. And as I said, I want the conversation to be done away from the table, so that I don't feel any pressure from players, but I have my time to ask any clarification, make sure that I get a good idea. So I know that some judges want to have the information as they walked to save time. I think that's not an efficient way to get the information passed. You transmit the fact and statements and make sure that you are clear on what are facts, what are things that you can verify, that you know for true, and what are statements, things that are subjective, and things that this is the first statement you have, but you cannot certify that they are true. That might be something that someone is mistaken about or even malicious about. And if players disagree on something, make sure that it's very clear for the judge what they disagree on. Which point of contention did they bring? There is a reason why you decided to fetch the head judge. This could have been a very simple situation that you could solve easily by yourself, but instead you decided, okay, I need an extra judge. I need someone else to be involved in that. What make you think that? What is a thing that make you believe someone might be malicious? That again, that will help the head judge to get a better idea of what is going on, because you, as a floor judge, you have the best idea of what is going on, and you need to transmit that. If you make sure that they know exactly why you need them, they will be able to ask the best question to gather the best information. And then, if possible, stay around so that you can double check the statements when they are delivered to the head judge. If they are you got, that will help you to make sure that you had indeed understood everything that was going on. You may have been mistaken, or if someone is changing some information, you will be able to catch that. Again, this is if you have the resources. If there are judge call nearby and nobody else to answer them, you might not be able to do that. But ideally, stay around, double check the statements. If possible, if you have something to add, to say, try to talk to the head judge away from the table. The reason is that we want to have the judge keep the conversation central, and we don't want to give the opportunity for players to start to make that a big mess. We want this to be something where we have a plan and we apply a plan, and we keep the head judge central, and the head judge will be the one asking the question and things. So make sure that you talk to the head judge away from the table. If you want more information about the role of the floor judge during an investigation, we have a nice article again by Kevin Desprez. I will give the link into the chat once I finish this presentation. And then we have the second role, the head judge role. And I'm going to assume that you are the head judge and that you have to perform your own part of the investigation. Again, on this process, you have a few things that you want to do, and you want to do them in order. So let's see what we get. So the first one, it gets the information, the initial picture from the floor judge. So they go to you and say, I have an investigation. And that's exactly the same thing, but from the head judge point of view. So if your floor judge is less experienced than you, they don't know what to do. You can guide them and make sure that they follow this process. Both players, that's very important. Even if you have a very clear idea of what is going on, even if you believe, for example, that this is an honest mistake, it's a very easy thing to fix, and there is not much you need more, that the floor judge give you the best picture ever, you still want to listen to both players. One of the reasons is that it's basic respect. It will be easier to get respected by players if you show them that respect, and it will be easier for them to respect your ruling. The second reason is that if a player is malicious, they don't want to talk. They want their opponent to do most of the talking because they don't want to incriminate themselves. So you will get a much easier day to find the truth and to get players on your side if you make sure you talk to both of them. If this part, if player agree summarize, is something that I wrote initially and I know disagree on. My initial thinking was that we're gonna save some time. Actually, we never do. When I summarize the situation, players still want to phrase it in their own words anyway. They want to rephrase. So let them do that anyway. If they disagree, again, we need to talk to both to make sure that both of them have the opportunity to express their point of view. And we want to separate them when we do that. We want to make sure that we prevent contamination, but also something very important. What you really don't want is to have one player explaining everything. The opponent, so what do you disagree on? And they say, I agree with everything, but this small part, that is a part that change everything for me. And this way, they don't have to commit on anything else than the part they want you to re-examine. And that give them a huge advantage and make it's very harder for you to that they're lying to you. We'll go on catching liars a bit later. So when you separate them, I really like to talk at the table. The player I'm talking to stay with me at the table, and the other one follow a judge, ideally a third one, or just go a bit further, 3-4 meters away, while I'll talk at the table. This is for multiple reasons. The first one is that at the table, the player can actually show you the way they believe things happen. It's both more clear for me to understand what is going on, And also, it's much harder for them to lie, because if you want to perform actions that you know are not true, this is called acting, and this is a real skill that you need to train and develop, and that make much harder for them to lie. So I want to see what is going on. I want to understand what is going on. I also want it to make it harder for them to lie. And the third thing is that they can freely talk about strategy element. Like, I can ask question when they say, so at this point I played that spell. I can ask why. Why did you play that spell? And I can say, oh, because I have this in hand, or because I suspect my opponent has that in their library. This kind of things, and I can at this point double check what is going on, and it's much easier for them to elaborate on the strategy. Ideally, we have the floor judge listen at this point, so they can easily double check if what they hear match what they initially understood. To decide if it's worth investigating or not, this is something that needs to be in the back of the mind of the judge during the whole process, and that will need to be reevaluated again and again. It is because everything that you do will delay the whole event. We will need to give extra time to that match if we don't disqualify players, and they might use all that extra time. So that might delay the whole event by the time of the investigation. But each new element you will get has a benefit. It will make your mind closer to what you think happened. And each new element will either change your mind or solidify your current theory and are worth something. But each element you get has a cost in time, and the cost may vary from how hard it is to get that information. So what you do is a benefit and cost analysis. Each new element will bring you something, will cost you something. Is it worth it? First, impossible to find. So you know that this information will help you, but you have no clue how to get that information. Don't bother about it. You just discard it. You're just gonna lose time if you want to base your information on something, your investigation on something you cannot get. Be aware that time destroys memories. As I said, the human brain is not the best witness, and the more time goes on, the more people take something they were likely as something that is certain. And the more it will be harder for you to get information you can actually use, because people will have to build that story that makes perfect sense, even if it's not the truth, and they will not be willing to deviate from that. So it's not just that you're gonna delay the whole event, it's also that the more the time pass, the less you will be able to get valuable information from players. And if at some point you get to a point where the benefit on costs ratio is no longer worth it, it's become too expensive to bring too little, just end the investigation at this point, and go on with the current theory you have. So you don't end the investigation when you're certain of something, you end the investigation when getting new information would be too expensive. Do all of this, some player might be malicious. They might try to hide the truth because they know they did something bad, or they may want to present you a story that will give them a ruling they should not have, but would be at their advantage. So do that, they lie to you, and you want to actually catch that. And because it's very hard to have a lie detector in the room, you're gonna need to use a few tips. You are never certain if someone is lying to you or not, but there are some things that should light up a red alarm in your brain. And first, I'm gonna talk about a few things that are not lying. So we do not disqualify people for that, and you don't need to immediately think, that person is lying. I need to. They're the one who did the mess. First thing is that disagreement are not lies. It's not because two people disagree on something that one of them is lying. Two people may say two completely different things and be certain of it and still not lie. If they think that what they say is true, it's not a lie. And they may be mistaken. They may misunderstood what is going on, and they may misremember what just happened. Because again, the human memory is not something that we can really rely too much on. Because humans are horrible witnesses. So they will tell you that they've seen something when, in fact, it might not be true. And to show you how hard it is to ask very precise questions, like how did your opponent tap their mana? What did they say? So something very, very technical. I'm gonna use a video. You may already know it. If you do not, try to do your best. So this video is a video that is used about attention test. And basically, we have two teams. We have a team that is wearing black and a team that is wearing white. And they're gonna pass each a ball, and there are two balls, one for each team. And what I would like you to do is to count each for the white team how many times they're gonna pass the ball. So you obviously need to focus on the white players. We only count when they pass it to another player. We don't count when the ball just touches the ground. And we want to know how many times they did pass. And this is the best I can find about simulating, trying to pay attention to what is going on in a game of Magic. This is not perfect, but should give you some information. So how many passes did you count? Feel free to write it in the chat. So we have 15, 11, 15, 14. Yeah, 15, but see, you have a few judges. We are not on 15. Also have a question, which is how many gorilla did you see in the chat, in the video? So if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's no problem. I had no clue what people were talking about the first time. Let's go back to that video. 15. And there is a gorilla that is just walking. So if you did not see the gorilla because you were focused on something else, that's perfectly normal. And that's one of the things that I wanted to show with that video, is that you can miss something as obvious as a big gorilla when you're focused on something else. So if a player is focused on combat math, it's very easy for them to miss, or did their opponent tap mana, or what did they say? And if they start to claim that they did it some way, it might be wrong, but not because they're lying, just because did not see it the same way that you did not see. And memories degrade quickly. On this, there are also a lot of studies where basically it's very hard for people when there is, for example, a bank robbery to give a good description of the robber or even which color were their clothes. People just make stuff up without realizing. So it's very easy for two players to disagree on what did happen, the way lands were tapped, or these kind of things, without one of them lying. It's just their memories are bad. Another thing that make people change the truth without being a lie, if you ask the same question over and over to someone, they're gonna eventually snap and say something else. If an authority figure is asking a question and I'm answering something, and they get visibly frustrated and keep asking me, most likely the answer I'm giving them is not a good one, is not the one they want. So at some point, I'm under pressure, I'm just gonna change my answer and try to see if I can guess what they want me to say. That's a very human reaction, and that's why asking the same question and running into circle will give you very bad result. At some point, someone is gonna change their story, and at some point you will be, haha, you lied to a judge because your story is no different, and you're gonna disqualify them and feel very good about yourself, but you did not really solve anything here. And the last thing that might be a bit controversial, but improving the story is not a lie. Most people see themselves as the hero of their life, and they want to have to be cast in a good light. And they might say things that might make them look more in control of what is going on than they actually are, more thoughtful and more carefully planned than what they actually are, as long as what they say does not change anything critical on the investigation itself. Sure, we don't really care about that. We're not gonna go on small details that are irrelevant and say, aha, I know you're lying because this cannot be true. You cannot have thought of that. What do you think are what do you think you're starting which one do you think you're starting to go in circle? I will go on that a bit later, but basically you will craft a plan, and you will need to follow that plan, and if at some point you start going back and redoing the same step, you're going in circle, but I will go back to that. What are red flags for lies? The first thing are very convenient difference with what the other player is saying. So if two players agree on everything but something that change everything for your ruling, that change the ruling from either being non-intentional to intentional, or change the ruling from being not in their favor to their favor, that's a red flag. Does not mean they're lying, but means that you need to pay attention to what is going on. The player might try to play you. So asking similar question and see how different they answer. Honestly, no. You want to get an information, you got your information. Use your time to get a new information. Don't try to get the same one. So a lie might be illogical with itself. So basically, if I start an explanation, and during my explanation, I state something, and then for that explanation to be true, that something needs to be different at some point, that's a big tell. So I'm gonna try to be more practical here. Let's say that I ask the player, so why did you attack here? And the player say, because if they have a removal in hand, and then next turn I'm like, okay, and if they have a removal in hand, how many damages do you deal right now? And they say 8. Okay, your opponent is at 10, so how does it work? That's not logical. If your attack only makes sense if your opponent has no removal, and you explain that you did that attack because you fear your opponent has a removal, that does not work. That might be other example, but basically, when you ask question to the player and their answer does not work because their assumption, their explanation contradicts itself at some point, that's something that is a red flag, because either your player is brain farting, which is possible, or the player is inventing stuff on the spot and have a hard time to make a very logical story. Another sign is when people give you strategical nonsense. Why did you do that attack? Because this is the best attack I can do. Okay, or is it better than not attacking also with your unblockable creature? Use your knowledge of the format of the matchup as a judge to see if what they say makes sense. But this become harder when you go to more competitive events and players start to be better than you at Magic. So what you can do here is to use another person who should be as good as magic? The opponent. So when you do that, make sure that you do not commit total assistance. What I like to do is, for example, ask to a player, so what would be the best card in your opponent's hand to be right now? And then when I talk to the opponent, I ask, so what would be for you the best card to have in your hand right now? What would be the best top deck? Those kind of questions. For example, when you investigate on drawing extra cards and trying to see if the player can draw cards that would change everything or not. Because every new card is better in Magic, but some cards are not cards are created equal. So if I need to check about a strategical comment, I will always check with the opponent. What do you think would be the best attack for your opponent here if you have a removal in hand? And these kind of things. So I can check if that makes sense or not. Another big sign of someone trying to lie will be when they give answers trying to basically not commit on anything or try to hide everything. So players who try to change the topic every time you ask them about something, player who try to hide behind "I don't know, I don't remember," which might be true. You might not remember what happened, but if I ask you why did you attack with those two creatures, if the answer is "I don't know," honestly, I don't think you're doing random decision all the times. You should have an idea of what you're doing. Why did you attack with those two creatures? Yeah, but my opponent tapped that forest. Yeah, that's not the question I'm asking right now. Why did you attack with two creatures? So those kind of answers, red flags again, might be a sign that someone is not honest with you. Find evidences. You need to find information that will make you think your current theory is correct or not. So the first thing that is important is you have a theory in mind. The player is honest, the player is dishonest, the player seen that their opponent mispaid their spell, that they tap too many mana, or that player drew an extra card on purpose, or the opposite, this player did not calculate combat damage correctly because they are bad at math. You have a theory, and then you want to disprove it. You do not want to try to find evidence that prove your theory. Why? Because the same way that the player's brain is not reliable, yours is not too. You have bias. And those bias are trying to make you think stuff that are not logical. And one of those strong bias you have is a confirmation bias, which means that when your brain sees something that confirm your current theory, your current thinking, your brain will put a huge weight behind that. And will try to diminish the things that actually go against your current vision of the world. And you want to fight that bias. So what you do is you try to actively look stuff that will make you change your mind. So, for example, let's say that there was a my opponent creature is a 4/4 attack with a 3/3. I put my 3/3 into the graveyard. My opponent put their 4/4 into the graveyard. Did I notice that or not? This is an investigation. I need to know that to know if it's a GRV and we just fix a game, or it's cheating and we just kick me out. So my current theory is that this is an honest mistake. The player has no clue what is going on and did not notice. So this is my current theory. What would change my mind? And that's the kind of stuff I want to find. So I'm going to ask myself, what would change my mind here? What kind of elements would disprove my current theory? Those would be, this is an experienced player. One of those elements could be, I know exactly what this card is doing. One of those elements could be, I clearly, my attack only makes sense if I expect my creature to die and there to survive. For example, I had my attack only makes sense if I plan to play my removal or need to finish it off, my direct damage. So Then we need to identify correlator truth. Correlator truth is if A is true, then B is true as well. So what would be correlator truth? I'm an experienced player. I have been playing in a lot of high-stake tournaments. I know what this card is doing. This card has been on the battlefield for a while and already blocked a 3/3 and did not die. I play that card in my deck. This is a staple of the metagame, and I know exactly what is going on in the metagame. These are examples of correlator truth. We have a 3-part article on correlator truth, and I will give the link into the chat. So I will not spend too much time on this concept. And information. So I know what kind of information would disprove my current theory. I just need to ask. No, so I ask them. So what kind of tournament do you usually play? What is your current record in the match? Do you play that card? Did you play that card during the previous games? How long this card has been in on the battlefield? So that again, I'm looking for facts or for statements and see how much they confirm the elements that I'm looking for, and then if I can disprove my current theory. If I can disprove my current theory, I'm gonna reevaluate it. I'm gonna change it. Okay, no, I know that that player is actually someone who play a lot of Grand Prix. They have that card in their deck, and they have they already attacked with a 3/3 on in it last turn, and it did not die. So no, I'm changing my theory of that's just bad math. Player are sloppy to I think you know what you're doing, and you notice that this creature should not have died, and you let your opponent do it. And then you repeat. So now I'm looking for a new element that would disprove my current theory. So I think that player is a cheater. I'm gonna try to find ways for to think that actually they really did not notice. So, for example, I would be, maybe they did not notice because they were doing something else at this point and did not have the time to realize the creature was put in the graveyard. So, a new element will be what they're doing just after the mistake, this kind of stuff. So, you just go until, again, you cannot identify a new element that would change your current theory. And you need to do that in a timely manner. You need to do the cost-benefit analysis we've seen before. And if at some point you notice you're running in circles, so you're trying to get again an element you already have, or you already tried to get and discarded because it was too time-consuming, this is a sign you're running in circles. So at this point, don't do that. Stop. If you notice that you're trying to get elements you cannot get, or that you're trying to re-get the same element again and again, it's a sign that you need to reevaluate what element you have, what element you need, and could you find something else? And if the answer is not, end the investigation. Be aware that you can never be sure. So if you only try to end your investigation when you know for certain what did happen, you will never end an investigation because you can never be sure. In fact, you can be less after the investigation than before. Before, I'm like, yeah, most of the mistakes are easy mistakes where players are sloppy, they don't know what they're doing. And after the investigation, like, actually, they might know, but I'm not sure. I have elements that make me think they know. I have elements that make me think they don't. I'm less sure now than before. That's okay. But it's not a sign that you're doing a bad investigation. It's a sign that you're actually challenging your assumptions, them. Make sure that you involve the floor judge. We have two judges here. You're the one asking the question, but that does not mean you're the only one who need to think about what is going on. I like to ask my floor judge, so what kind of element here would make you change your mind? What kind of question can I ask to ask with the element? And once I got the answer, go back to the floor judge and ask, so what did you think of that? Did you reevaluate your current theory? This is where I am right now. Same thing when I'm about to close the investigation, make sure that they know about it and they're not surprised, and if they think there's still some avenue to explore, they can let me know. So this is teamwork. We have two judges working on that case, not only one. And be aware that your decision will be based on informed feelings. This is because we try to see ourselves as very logical creatures. We're actually very emotional creatures, and most of our decisions are based on feelings. But we have a method. But we did our best to combat our bias. But we did our best to find actual evidence and information, and we tried our best to inform those feelings and challenge them and get to a place where we did our best. But still, this is based on feelings, not on truth. You do not know for certain what did happen. And this is very important because it will change a lot on how you communicate with your floor judge and the players. You will need to deliver the ruling. Obviously, if you're gonna disqualify a player, try to do that away from the table, because otherwise you're going to put their opponent in a very uncomfortable position. But this is based on your feelings. So something I would say, for example, is, okay, based on the information I have, I believe that what happened is you notice this creature should not have died, but it's very advantageous for you for that creature to die, because otherwise it kills you next turn, and here you're set up to kill your opponent next turn. And at some point you noticed and decided to not say anything. This is not something I know for sure. This is something that a belief that people in my position, with the information they get, would have agree with you with the conclusion. They will obviously tell you that they're not cheating and should not be disqualified, and they're free to disagree. But you're not saying that they are a cheater. You're saying that based on the information you have, this is the most likely scenario, and that other judges in your position with whose information would believe the same, and you also believe that you have all information you can get. So this is the best ruling you can give at this point. Then, as I say, you explain why you believe this is what happened. Ruling. So based on this information, I have to remove you from the tournament, or based on this information, I believe everybody here was acting in good faith and we're not gonna fix that mistake. Something I like to say, players, is after talking to both of you and getting information that involves strategical element I could not disclose, I believe everybody here was acting in good faith. And again, they can disagree with that, with my conclusion. They cannot really disagree with my reasoning. And whatever happened, don't let the player restart the investigation. If the player don't like your conclusion, they cannot mulligan the investigation. They cannot make you restart. So if they want to provide something that is very relevant and was never mentioned before, sure, they can do that, and you can take that into consideration, but that's not a very realistic scenario. A more realistic scenario is that they're gonna restate something they already stated, and at this point, you will say, yeah, this is something I took into account. I had other elements to take into account, and based on all the elements, not just this one, this is the conclusion that I have to reach. If someone, you will have some paperwork to do. So let's end up with that. So we have a disqualification process that has been published by the WPN. We're telling you, oh, without one disqualification to be processed, no. They should be done by the TO or someone they delegate it to, and guess who it is? It's you. I will give the link for that article. You just follow the instruction on this article. Just be aware that the instructions are not necessarily in the best order. So I recommend you to read everything before following the instruction. For example, at some point, they say what to do at home, and at this point, they ask you for information. But if you did not write down at the tournament, you will not get. So read everything before leaving the venue. Print the player and TO FAQ. Make sure that the TO know that you just disqualified one of their customers, so that they can actually do customer service if needed. But also, for example, make sure that the security of everybody is ensured. But also, as basic decency, as I said, you just disqualified one of their customers. This is a bad experience for that player, so TO need to know. Player FAQ will tell them everything they need to know about the situation, and these FAQ should be available in most Magic languages. Make sure you gather statements. You explain the players and the witness and the opponent and the floor judge, everybody who has something relevant to say, that Wizards of the Coast will not take their decision based only on your own understanding of the situation, but also on the understanding of the situation of everybody involved. So you will have to provide those statements to Wizards of the Coast, so you would like them to write them down. If they refuse to do that, make sure that you mention it in your own statement. And make sure that you have the DCI numbers until the end of the month. And after that, that you have the Wizard Play Network identification system, the thing that you use to log on Arena. Only the login, not the password. Players are, for some reason, very eager to give passwords to judges. Don't take that. And you will need the email address of that player, just in case Wizards of the Coast need to ask them more questions or tell them they're suspended. It would be more convenient if the player know they cannot play a tournament before they actually show up to a tournament. You will also need the event sanctioning number. This is an information that is on the scorekeeper's software, and it can only be accessed from that software. So if you leave the venue and need that information, it will be very awkward to get it. So make sure that you have it before you leave the tournament. That's it for that method. So I'm aware that investigation is a very broad topic, very, very broad. It's one of the most important things we do. And 1 hour to cover all of that is very short. So this is a very theoretical presentation, not a lot of example, not a lot of good stories from past investigations, because I have to fit as much as I can in 1 hour. And just showing you that method, or two judges can work to get an investigation that get them as close as the truth as possible. This is what I could do in 1 hour. So I hope that this method can help you. If you have more questions, feel free to ask them right now in the text. And on top of that, if you have more questions, I will stay around for the next half an hour, and you can send them privately. I will give you all the links that I mentioned, and after that, I'm going to start answering questions. Don't forget to fill the feedback so I can improve myself, make sure that my next presentation will be better. And I already have a question, which is, should a judge expected to recuse themselves from a call if they know either of the players? That's indeed not practical at FNM events. At larger events, it's also awkward, because at larger events, high-level judges, they don't see that many different people from event to event. Most of the people we see are either high-level judges or high-level players, the people who are also each event. So quickly you start to know most of the pro players, and you're still the one who need to give your ruling, so you cannot really recuse yourself. If you believe yourself to not be able to process that, sure, make an exception, deviate, and ask someone else to take over the head judge role, but that should be exceptional and significant. So don't do that every time you're with someone you already shared a drink with. Yes. When you investigate at the table, it's true for both settings. Basically, what you want is you want to talk with a player and have them answer to you without any concern of their opponent overhearing or seeing what is going on. For all people thanking me, you're welcome. But if you have more questions, we have still 5 minutes on this room, and after that, as I said, I'm gonna stay around for an hour. So, Johan, you had a question that was flooded. Sorry. Investigation on feature match. Oh yeah. So investigation on feature match. We have more and more feature matches, including at local events, which is awesome. My advice is work with the coverage team if there is one. If it's a local game shop where basically there is just a camera filming the match, there is no people to work with. But if there is a feature coverage team, work with them because we're all the same team. We all want the tournament to be a success, and that's a huge part on coverage because they may actually serve more customers than you. Especially that's especially true at a large event like Grand Prix or player tours, where the view numbers will be much higher than the people actually in the hall. So coverage team is very essential in the success of a tournament. So you want them to know that there is an investigation, and you want them to know for how long you expect it to go. If you believe that it's just a couple of just quick checking, let them know. If you believe that there might be here something that's gonna take you a few more minutes to solve, let them know as well. They will be able to either switch to another table if it's technically possible. They may be able to just start talking and cut the camera, which is also depending on what kind of technical means they have. But I will not change the investigation itself. I will still ask some question. I will still behave exactly the same way with players. There is no difference here. I'm not shy about players seeing me investigate. I believe that in the same way that we should be proud of the way we give rulings or help players, we should be proud of the way we investigate. We're here to keep the game fair, and we try hard to fight our bias, to have a method, to be very strict and logical in the way we actually proceed, and want players to be able, if they want, to see what I'm going on. But this is also very boring. This is someone asking question to a player and trying to figure out what just happened. And most of the spectators already know what did happen because they've seen it. So this is not very interesting. That's why I would tell the coverage that, hey, this is going on, so they can switch to a more interesting content. Not because I want to hide anything, just because I don't think this is a good show. If anybody else have more questions, I still have a couple of minutes in this room before you're going to kick me out.
I'll just take this opportunity to thank everyone again, and thank you, Emilian, for that wonderful presentation. This is a reminder to fill out the feedback form, which has been posted in the Chandra text chat. And also, I posted a link for the seminar schedule for next week, as well as the application schedule to both admin and present for week 3. So if anyone is interested in that, just click on the link above. And Emilian will be still around for a few minutes to answer questions. Thanks, everyone.